really, really special to have such a great turnout tonight, because I know that our topic tonight is not exactly high up there in terms of fun things to do on your Wednesday evening, but it's probably the most important talk that I think we've ever had at Plant People. And for those of you that don't know me, my name's Ilana. So I'm the founder of Plant People. I started it in about 2012, I think it was. And for those of you whose first time it is, just wanted to welcome you to the family, because it is a family, and it's really good to have you here. And I do apologize that you're coming tonight to your introduction is to such a heavy topic, but at the same time, it's really important that we talk about something that is so important to all of our lives, to all of our futures, to our planet, and to our medicines. And I've been receiving a lot of criticism talking about this. Some of the criticism I get is, why are you talking about this? It's scaring people. And there's nothing we can do, and I don't agree with either of those statements. And I believe that those of us that are on this path are committed to a path of truth. In fact, it's the second yogic yama, satya, which is truthfulness, speak the truth. And the truth is something that is often painful, and it's actually a symptom of spiritual awakening. Spiritual awakening is often painful, but we are not of a tribe that has ever shied away from the truth, that has ever shied away from that which is scary. We go into the scary, that is our nature. And when we face the truth, when we stare into the darkness, there's a very beautiful quotation. I'm actually just going to put it up here because it has to do with what we're going to be looking at. All great and beautiful work has come of first gazing without shrinking into the darkness. And I believe that we are all here to participate in great and beautiful work. And I'm not sure if everyone here has had an opportunity thus far to work with plant medicines, and I'm sure that if you haven't, you probably will. But the reality of the situation is now that we knew that there would never be enough medicine for everyone on this planet. And those of us that have worked with it, it's now a calling for us to be the medicine in this world. And the reality is that we're getting to the point where I don't even know if there's going to be a plant people. And we are now the medicine. If we've worked with the medicine, we are incredibly privileged. We are now the medicine for this planet. And we are the ones that have to take what we've learned and embody it, and embody the medicine and take it into the world.
Togos!
Now, this causes a lot of emotions to arise in our bodies, and at the same time, we need to look at what are the facts and what are the solutions. And my work, I find, is moving very much moving more and more away from plants and more into the reality of working with the country and how can we now step up and serve the country. And what I've found is that there is a movement that really aligns with what I believe is one of the greatest teachings that we have, that we've been learning from medicine, and that is oneness. And it's one of the fundamental messages of Extinction Rebellion. And so I've been getting very involved working with Extinction Rebellion. And so I'm going to hand over now to my very dear friend and comrade, Rihad, just like...
Started in 2011 when we had our big climate talks here, Conference of the Parties, doing some work around Africa on what was happening for Greenpeace and film work. And I covered some amazing activists who were busy down there at that time. And you can find these works, The Weather Gods, God is Rain, and an activist, COP17, an activist with a diary of an activist. I've been a political activist from an early age. In 1976, when I saw in the luxury of my home in the UK, where I spent my first 25 years in exile, left here as a baby, seeing those images in 1976 of school students being shot, I decided, well, these guys are really courageous, now I've got to stand up as well. And I dropped out of political activity 20 years later at the age of 33, 34, and came and started getting very depressed actually about the prospects for survival of Earth or of humanity on Earth. And I came across an amazing guy who's an author, writes about these things, and he convinced me that it's very important to do what we can, even if we don't succeed. Now that was 10 years ago. So I'm going to tell you what we know now and what I believe we can do, what we can do together. So, firstly, Brazil. Today, we woke up to the news that Sao Paulo, one of the biggest cities in Latin America, was dark during the day because of clouds of smoke that's come from the Amazon, because we have a new leader, a right-wing populist leader in Brazil, who believes the Amazon, large parts of it, should be cleared for cattle farming. And they're building a motorway right the way through it, and they started very quickly to give out land, common land, to people who are burning huge tracts of land. This represents 20% of our of our oxygen for the world. It's the lungs of the world in many ways. Now, the Amazon is a very important space because it's one of the most biodiverse places in the world. It is the most biodiverse. Second to that is our own Peru, the flora and fauna. Now, as humanity, we're only able to manage to harvest 10, 15% of the flora and fauna that exists in the Amazon and in our own Peru. There is a treasure trove of medicine still to be found there. And because of the very rapid increase, you might think 0.17 per decade is not rapid, but it is rapid. And it's getting much faster and faster as each decade goes, and I'll explain why. That's a massive loss, the flora and fauna, that we will lose in both Brazil as it heats up and as it's cut back for cattle ranching, and our own Peru. Now, that will be lost forever in the instance of the Peru, because we are at the tip of Africa. And our climate zones, the heat starts at the top and it moves down and down until species, the temperature changes. It's so rapid that species don't have the time to adapt, and they die. Or they move south, further and further south. And they will move to nowhere until there is nowhere for them to go. The sea. And that will be the end of them. Now, vast majority of all our medicine, botanical and non-botanical medicine is based on botanical medicine. So we will come to the end in many ways with the ability to develop new medicines for humanity. And climate change, many of us, certainly, when I was getting depressed about the fact that my children, what they're going to live through and what their children are going to live through. What I'm constantly having to face now is what we are living through. 5, 6, 7 towns, 6 or 7 towns now in the Eastern Cape are without water. Fort Hare has been forced to close down. Water Sisulu University, I think, is another one that's been forced to close down. We know Makanda, formerly Grahamstown, its water is being shipped in. We know in the Karoo there are a number of towns without water. I don't know many of you have experienced, I'm sure you're South Africans, you've experienced temperatures of 40 degrees and a little bit over. I was there this last Christmas, just driving through, and it was 40 and it was unbearable. I mean, most people don't have the luxury of air conditioning. A fan doesn't really do much job. At 45 degrees, the planet that geographical area becomes largely uninhabitable for people. So this and I'll go on to explain what we can expect in South Africa and Southern Africa a little bit later, but let me try and explain to you the science behind why these scenarios are becoming increasingly closer to us. The ocean covers 3/5 of our planet. Millions of square kilometers of that ocean has been covered with sea ice. That sea ice in the Arctic is rapidly melting. The UN, the Interparliamentary Committee on Climate Change, the IPCC has told us in their last report that we could expect to see, with business as usual scenario, the sea ice gone in 2060, 40 years' time. What the new data is telling us is that the Arctic sea ice could be gone as soon as 3 years' time. So the incremental graphs that the IPCC have been working on, and this is being based on a notion of consensus amongst the big scientific community, and this is edited in a way by the policymakers and the economists that are part of this IPCC, and pull out the final document. And that leads to a conservatism, because you have to have a very wide consensus. Nothing's put out where there isn't a consensus. And there's 200 eminent scientists there that, as I say, many of them are very angry by the fact that they're being edited by policymakers, politicians, and economists. So we've got this incremental graphs that the IPCCs are showing, and now on the Arctic sea ice, we've got some graphs which look like exponential. Now we know in the Arctic, its temperatures this year, this past year and the year before, have been 18 degrees last year above the average at times.
37.8 degrees Celsius in the Arctic the other day.
Yeah, this year. This is unimaginable. We've never had lightning in the Arctic, and now we've got recorded lightning. People may know when you get lightning, it means there's two climate zones coming together. And now we've seen fires that have been raging for the last 3 months. And they are producing clouds the size of Europe, black clouds the size of Europe, in Russia, Siberia, and Greenland. Now, the sea ice and the melting of the sea ice means that there is much more dark surface to absorb the heat, which means it stays in our climate, in our atmosphere. Where there is ice, it gets bounced back up out of our atmosphere for some ways into the stratosphere. The problem with our addiction to fossil fuel and fossil fuel economy has meant that we've emitted over the last 200 years 2 trillion tons of carbon into the atmosphere. 20 to 25% stays in the atmosphere for, well, we're not sure, but it's estimated at least 100,000 years. The belief is we've got another 1 trillion tons that we can emit before we go over the 1.5. It used to be 1. The IPCC set the 1, is it centigrade or Celsius? Celsius degree target. Now we've passed that. We've passed what many believe is a safe zone of 350 milliliters of carbon. I get confused.
CO2, yeah. CO2.
350, what's it, 350?
Parts per million.
Yeah.
Parts per million. 350 parts per million. We're now at 440. Business as usual. That's when we look at all the coal mines going into operation and the fire of coal-fired power stations. China's busy building 300 around the world. And fracking. Well, we know that's happening in our own Peru. And fracking releases a much more powerful greenhouse gas than carbon. 67 times more powerful. And that's associated with fracking. Now so 1.5 is dangerous. We're now at 1, and we're seeing what we're seeing, okay? We're seeing the Arctic sea ice melt. We're seeing warm currents of water go to the Antarctica, where there are massive ice shelves, 300 meters deep. Now, when those warm currents, because the amount of moisture in the air and the winds and so on, they're pushing currents in all sorts of directions where they never used to. Warm currents of water are moving towards the Arctic and Antarctic and unsettling the ice shelves there. Now this is very dangerous, because once we start seeing melt of the ice shelf and the ice on landing, which stays there, then we're going to see very dramatic sea rises. Many mainstream climate scientists, very mainstream people are now opting out of the consensus model, because they believe it breeds a conservatism, and the data is beginning to tell us something very different. That we are heading for a couple of tipping points. Now the fear is There are a whole number of tipping points. So the Amazon, we're getting dieback, plants are dying. It's happening in the Karoo, it's happening in the boreal forest. These are carbon sinks, okay? These are very important parts of our planet. The oceans are warming, we're having problems, how long will the ocean continue to be a carbon sink? So there are a whole set, 10, 12 or so potential tipping points. We're now seeing in a couple of, out of these potential 10 or 12 tipping points, one, possibly two, happening already. Now, the potential, particularly if we go at point 1.5, of a number of tipping points, or one tipping point cascading into the other, that we have 5, 6 tipping points. What are these tipping? Where are we tipping to? We're tipping to a permanent hothouse state of affairs, where 3 to 5 degree rise, global average temperature rise, becomes a reality. Now, in most parts of Africa, given the massive amount of landmass we have over the equator, you need to double that. Now you double 3 or 4 in parts of Africa. That takes you to a situation where our summers, and this is what we're all facing in Africa, will be much longer. On behalf of the poorer African states, these are the Oxfams and so on. These countries don't have the capacity to have their own specialist think tanks or people to represent them at the climate talks. And back then, when we realised what the trade-off was this, we all back down as Africa and the ocean islands on legally binding emissions, legally binding agreement which states how much each country can emit based on understanding of how much planet Earth, Mother Earth can take. In return for a green climate fund, that they would help us. Certainly the poor African countries significantly were moving away from fossil fuel to renewables. They would help us to adapt to the rising temperature increases which are coming. So what would have that, so that was the trade, that was the agreement. And then in Paris, those voluntary agreements, so-called targets, were put in place 3 years, 4 years later. But hardly anyone's on target to meet them because they're voluntary. This is a complete betrayal of what was stated 28 years ago in Kyoto, in Japan. And this is the problem, the fundamental problem. It's the metabolism of our planet has meant with the social system that we have developed that we are now part of its metabolism. We are part and parcel of planet Earth's metabolism. We moved into a situation where our own activity has led to a huge rift, a metabolic rift. That our systems of producing and living, producing energy in the way we live, has become unsustainable for the planet we live on. Nature will correct itself, even if we go extinct and we go down to the 1 billion people that we're talking in a hothouse state. Most people will die. Human civilization and much of its knowledge that we've gathered over the last few hundred years will be lost with it. Only those very hardy people who have been able to eke out a living from the planet, from the earth, from the soil, will survive, along with maybe the ultra rich. Now, the ultra rich, what are they talking about? They're not talking about how can we secure, and some of them are, some of the super rich, how can we secure ourselves? How can we keep our security guards on side when there's starvation outside of our walls? The ultra rich are planning and pumping money into colonizing another planet. Because life on Earth will truly be held in a hot-hour state. We know what happens when there's no food. History tells us what people do when there's no food. They raid, they kill, they plunder, and they murder. If we see sea level rises in the order of 2 meters, and that is what we will see if we go to 2 centigrade. Durban, Port Elizabeth, East London, Plettenberg Bay, Cape Town will be permanently disfigured, completely destroyed or completely disfigured. London will not have much south of the River Thames. New York, the size of Manhattan, there'll be a quarter of Manhattan left. This is the reality we face. Most Amsterdam's got that most places cannot we have not developed the technology where we can survive with more than a meter rise in the sea level. So this scenario will mean 2 billion people will be on the move. Some people put it, a little bit lower, 1 in 10. Internal migration. Never mind the hordes of people who are trying to get to places which are less adversely affected. Everywhere will be adversely affected. Now, the readings I've been doing over the last couple of weeks, I've just prepared for the talk which I gave Saturday, and you've got to wind me up now because I'm coming into the last session, is that we've got 18 months to build a vociferous movement where we've got to do what it takes to get our governments into action at these big international conferences. That's the timeline we have to get these big club of polluters in line with the rest of the world. And South Africa is part of that club. Mm-hmm. We are, per capita, the biggest polluter in the world. We are the 14th. Number 14 in terms of how much carbon we emit. But for our population size, we are the biggest emitter in the world. ESCOM and SASOC, together with 100 other companies around the world, produce 70% of the world's CO2 and other pollutants. We have an obligation. South Africa produces 80% of all Africa's pollution. We are in this situation now where we are both a perpetrator and also a victim. So we've got to do what is morally right. And this is what we say in Extinction Rebellion. It's beyond politics. You know, when these old political theorists of 100, 200, 250 years ago spoke about the state, one of the most conservative, Thomas Hobbes, said, Hobsbawm, sorry. Is it Hobsbawm or Hobbes? Hobsbawm. It's Hobbes. Huh? Hobbes, it's Hobbes. He says that if a society is unable to secure law and order, then its citizens have the right to rebel, to revolt. Locke, another revered classical mainstream political theorist who have built his ideas of the foundations for liberal democracy. If a government cannot secure the livelihoods of its citizens, it has the right to revolution, to rebellion. Now, the Second Amendment in the USA incorporates these ideas. Leading Republicans, and I'm not talking about that nasty man who's the president at the moment, leading Republicans have called on the young to revolt because it's their future which is being sold down the river by this continued reliance on fossil fuels, particularly coal, which is the big problem and a huge funder of candidates, presidential candidates, and the mainstream political parties in the States. By the way, you know, when we go to these climate talks, we're not going it's just not our government people are going. A large part of the delegation are from ESCOM, a large part of the delegation are from SASOL. We've got to end that. So what to do? This is the good news. And this is the only good news, I'm afraid. That we don't have the time to be building to a situation where we try and put hundreds of thousands of people onto the streets. We must do that. And maybe we start getting close to that on the 20th. We're not sure. We're not sure what the global climate strike, which the school student from Sweden has called, who's been leading the strikes of hundreds of thousands of students, school students, every month, on a Friday every month. Back in March, she called for a global strike, and since then, it's been gaining tremendous momentum. But back to XR, we say that really, we are looking at the moment for the next 6 months of recruiting a few hundred people willing to engage in civil disobedience. We need to ramp that up to a few thousand. We need to be in a situation wherever we're taking action, there's more people that should be arrested than there are police cells for. We believe that civil disobedience is a critically important tool for bringing the nation into conversation with itself. And if we do it right, we do it peacefully in a non-violent manner, that this and people will start to sympathise with us, because all of you know who came to this meeting today that climate change is a problem. We're seeing in a number of elections around the world the far right being defeated because they're denying that there's such a thing as climate change. They're losing elections. They're losing their support base because they're denying this. We know 20-30% of the South African population are aware we've got a problem on our hands. They don't believe. I don't think they're aware of how urgent it is, that this is an emergency. If we can, convert that 30%. If we can get 10% of that 30% mobilised, supportive, in one way or the other, even if it's passive support, for the civic protest, for the actions, for the civil disobedience, we, I think, can sustain that for the 18 months, on the outside, maybe 3 years that we have left to stop us going into 2 and that cascade of tipping points taking us to a situation where we will face very squarely the prospect of extinction, human extinction. So we're asking people to stand up, to join us. We're not asking, we will need those of you who are brave enough or hard enough to face the prospect of spending a night in a cell, but not everybody needs to be doing that. There are many other things that you can do and will need to do.
Maybe if I can take over from here. So the aim of tonight's discussion is to open up a conversation. And this is one solution. The reason that I wanted to introduce Extinction Rebellion to you is Extinction Rebellion is not an organization, it's a movement. So Extinction Rebellion isn't someone you donate money to. Extinction Rebellion is an organization that's a platform for numerous organizations to come together. So basically Greenpeace, Earthlife Africa, 350.org, everyone's just coming together, basically, just coming together and participating in these events. Now, there's many things that we can do, and it's the one aspect is creating awareness and disruption, because we have to, the number one objective is to get the government to tell the truth. Now, I've been looking at pictures of the Siberian forest on fire, reindeer on fire. Go and look at the newspaper. There's no news about this. There were over 74,000 fires in the Amazon jungle since January. Most of them started by loggers. Now, added to that, what's happening in the forests of our planet, because of the increase in temperature, forest floors consist of damp, moist peat, meters of it. Because the temperature is rising, that peat is heating, and it's becoming a wick that is catching, and the forest floors are catching.
This is in the Arctic.
So this is why the Arctic forests are catching. So we don't know what we're facing. We could very possibly be going through what is the 6th mass extinction, and very possibly facing our own human extinction in the next few years. We don't know. Now, Joanna Macy, so I'm going to be bringing in someone to talk about the work of Joanna Macy, who really is the shaman of ecology and teachings, which I believe are the teachings for this time. So we connect, we know as Africans, we know the legacy of our ancestors and the wisdom of our ancestors. Now we need to start thinking, what is our legacy as ancestors? And also to consider that the potentiality that possibly our ancestors are not going to be human. What is our legacy towards life? And that is something we have to consider. Like, we have to consider, what is our legacy towards life on this planet, even if it is not going to be human? Because we don't do this because we believe we will succeed. We do it in the hopes that we will succeed. But there's also the possibility that we will fail. But we do it because we couldn't possibly do anything else. We do it because we love so deeply. We do it because we love this planet so deeply, because we are not separate from it, and it is because of our separation sickness that we are in the situation that we are now. And we couldn't possibly do anything else. And everything I believe right now is teaching us oneness and to reconnect with oneness. The only way we are going to make it now as a species is if we can come back to oneness. It is time for us to drop everything that separates us as human beings. We have to drop the fucking bullshit. There is nothing that makes us different from one another, and the only way that we're going to get through this is if we come together as one and start to care and look after one another and look after every life form and regard life as precious, which it is. Because when you are faced with a teacher such as death, we are looking at death as a collective now. We are forced to ask ourselves some very important questions. And those questions are, what is precious? And what is not precious are things. What is precious is life. What is precious is love. And that's what we're being called to. We're being called to rise up in love. And this is how we will change everything. This is why each and every one of you is on this path. This is the medicine that is running through your veins. This is why you are here. And this is what we have to do now, each and every one of us, in each of our ways. There is a way for each and every one of you to get involved. Whether you are an artist, a musician, a comedian, a gardener, it doesn't matter. You bring what you bring, and you bring it now. And you cannot do anything but bring it. This is what we are here for. This is why we work with medicine. It's not for us to go back to medicine. It's now to bring the medicine and to live it in this world. This is why we did this. We are the medicine. You are the medicine. Everyone in the room, you are the medicine. So let's take this medicine into the world. In whatever shape or form, but you have to do something. I'm not here to recruit you to some kind of cult. I don't care if it's Extinction Rebellion. I don't care where you choose to live out your service to this planet. But our relationship to this planet is not separate. We are connected. We are one. And now it's for us to live that love. Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to give you a chance to just let this move through your body and just to speak and say, how do you feel right now? Because this is really a container to let you feel it, because we have to feel it. And an open heart has got the capacity to hold everything. And it's with open hearts that we have to engage this.
May I speak? Please. We have the most amazing ally to help us on this journey over the next 18 months. Mother Earth is alive. She can speak to us. She is pushing us to do this. And we need to connect to her for inspiration. She has been working with me. I nearly died in 1998. Since 1998, She has worked with me. I've gone up mountains. I've been alone on this journey, gone all over the world. I have been reading recently about the Bronze Age and the whole of the Mesopotamian area all around it, north of Africa, that was forested. It is now desert. Apparently the huge cedar forest, the huge, what is the tiger now, that is burning, was all around, stretched right from the Caucasus Mountains all the way down to the Arab states. It was all lush, beautiful forest. And because of the Bronze Age and the smelting works, we burnt that whole forest. It has never regrown. And this is hitting me very hard. If we're burning the tiger, we're burning the whole of the north, we're burning the Amazon. Our Tsitsikamma forest that I used to drive through as a child took a day to drive through. It's gone. Few pine trees. What the bloody hell are we doing? It is time that we moved. What these guys are talking about is the truth. I know it. I nearly died 3 times last year. I kept on getting shoved back here. I had a brain tumor 10 years ago. I nearly died then. There is a reason why I'm alive, and I had to seek that reason, and it's this. Stay alive. As Alana said, it may not be us humans that are going to live, but we need to leave a legacy in nature. Nature needs us. Animals that are so sensitive are just being killed off in their billions and trillions. And we sit back. We can't do it any longer. I am a public speaker. I'm prepared to speak and get people moving. I don't care if they kill me, because I know that if I die, I go on. I've seen my past lives. I've been all over the world to connect to places where I have lived in past lives. I was born with gifts, and I want to use my gifts to move things now. I cannot sit back any longer. I cannot be abused by humanity any longer.
So what do you guys suggest each and every individual here can do? It's my first time coming to this meeting, but I understand your passion from all of you. So what do you think we can do? Like, what can I do? Getting advice from you. I mean, can I plant 10 trees in my yard? Would it help? Can I make a commitment to do something besides the recycling? What can we do? Because I don't know if I can go to Cecily and say, stop doing what you're doing.
You can, because we're going to, but Riyadh's going to give you some ideas.
Okay, so
I do think doing our compost, separating our waste, being conscious human beings is important. It's important because we're in many ways bearing witness to what is happening, and we need to continue to bear witness. Planting trees, I think if we can get a mass movement of people planting trees, like they're doing in some countries, Ethiopia, they've got a huge. So to really get these things going properly, we've got to push and shift government. And if government can't do it, what we're saying is we need what they call a plebiscite, which was done in ancient democracies, where we bring citizens together to break the deadlock.
Citizens' Assembly.
Yeah. But in Extinction Rebellion, we have many circles. We have arts and culture, we have regenerative, we have people involved in organic farming and farming collectives. We have political circles, strategy circles, media and messaging circles, training and talks, all coming together and intersecting, meeting each other's needs in whatever way they can. But I've been, I joined XR because they're vocal, and in a very short space of time they managed to get the British government to declare emergency. But that's all good and well, but what does it mean? It's meant that now you can see some really decent programming on BBC because they're committed to telling the truth. That has a cascade effect in itself. In October, we're going to be joining an international week of rebellion.
Mm-hmm.
We will be putting our bodies on the line in one form or the other. We need observers for people who aren't up for being arrested. We need all sorts of things that surround that action. If people do go to jail, we need people standing outside the police station. But on the 20th, we're seeing major trade unions, federations from around the world going to be joining this strike, this global strike. We weren't ahead enough of the curve in South Africa to lobby and convince one of the trade unions. You only need one trade union federation to declare a dispute, which then goes to the chamber, the NEDLAC, business, government, and labour sit, and where everybody could take the day off work without any legal repercussions. The Section 77 strike. We're not in that position, so what we're asking people is, if you've got a job and you're working with others, maybe speak to them and say, you know what's going on. Our governments aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, what they've promised to be doing. We need to take a stand. One in the group of us approached the manager and asked for unpaid leave. Now, under the South African labour law, you have the right to unpaid leave. So that's what we're asking people in South Africa to do, and many other countries, to come together in wherever you are in a collective space. It might just be a reading club, it might be a church group or something, but you do it together. You're feeling confident and strong enough to do that. But turn out, we're going from Braamfontein, we're marching through town to the legislature.
Oh, that's nice.
And we want the legislature, the provincial government, to declare an emergency. Now, that might be an easy enough thing to win, a quick win. We need some quick wins. The difficulty is, what does that then mean for the way our provincial government acts? Are they going to try and convince the other provinces to do the same thing? So on. So, in November, there's a job summit in Sandton. We're saying if we're going to change the energy system, we need to build trains. We need to get away from the cars. We need to build trams. We need a proper mass public transport system. We need to build solar panels. We need to build turbines. We need to build the stuff for water technology and so on. Windmills, all sorts of hydropower. This could create very easily 1 million jobs. And we want to get outside that job summit and say, you really want to put a dent in unemployment? Fighting unemployment and climate justice can be the same thing. We want 1 million climate jobs. That's going to be happening in November. There's an alternative job summit down the road where 1,000, 1,500 people will be gathering, and from there contingents of people going to the job summit. In December there's another day of action, so it's really trying to build towards action where we get noticed and we stay in the face of the media and the press and our governments, and in the process raise this to the debate where it needs to go. Because at the moment, what we committed to at Paris, we are far, far away from the targets that we promised we would meet in 2030. Quite frankly, we should say we're not interested in 2030 targets. We're interested in 2025 targets. How much carbon should we be emitting by 2025? If we know what our share should be of that, what's left of that trillion tonnes, and we have to go beneath the trillion tons, because now we're getting methane gas coming. We're getting it from the Arctic, we're getting it from the sea. The sea's not cold enough in many places. We're seeing methane rising. You know, and if we do go beyond 2 degrees, these big forests will not be carbon sinks, they will be carbon emitters. That's what we're facing. So, you know, we've got a very powerful research team up and running. We've got some real high-powered people there. We've got some really high-powered people in the media messaging group. And some of the other groups are really very strong as well. So let's just turn out and commit ourselves to trying to understand this science. I mean, I don't know, are there any scientists in the room? 1, 2, 3. Right, so it's difficult. Climbing the high walls of science is what's the job? Especially if you haven't got a university education. Please. Particularly if you haven't got a university education. And that means struggling with the text. I'm assuming at least half of you in the room have probably got a university education. You know how to read, and you've got to battle through some of that stuff. But it is becoming easier. Some of the scientists are now writing in a much more popular way.
Really good to get these circles started because, you know, we can connect internationally to all the other groups that are, because there's scientists in Extinction Rebellion internationally, you know, who all have the same vision and want to do the same stuff. So let's get you guys connected.
Yes.
You know, it's been such an incredible evening. You know, when it started at about 3 o'clock this afternoon, I could feel just this grief moving through my body, and it was just contained in my womb, and I think I nearly collapsed. Probably about 6 or 7 times, you know. And Amy was, and Kim, you know, you guys were like holding me up. I could just feel the emotions of this moving through me. And you know, I mean, I honestly, I didn't know what tonight was going to be, but I could feel something big coming, a lot of emotional stuff, you know, movement of something coming, and you know, it's just such a powerful affirmation, you know, that we are not islands. Together we are so strong. And once again, you know, this whole separation thing just doesn't work for us. But I mean, look at the power of everyone in this room, you know, together. Every single one of you is so very important. You know, like we started off, you know, at one point I was just feeling like, I just wanted to like gag my head and say, no, you know, we don't really bring them to parties much. Looking for opportunities and moving on. It's getting really dark. But, you know, just to, I really do believe, you know, when we face it, you know, the truth will set you free.
Very liberating.
And it's this is our way. And you know, when we face it head on, you know, there's no shadow that we cannot face. And when we face the shadows, that you know, then we can move into the light. And look how strong we are together. Elizabeth.
Yes. Thank you for calling us together, coming and explaining, and for holding this space, and that you've carried for us, today, Lana. And I just want to say, so I'm here. There've been this meeting and that meeting and things happening, and I haven't been back up. Here I am today at this meeting, and I think it's because this group, although I'm not here often, but it's a safe space. It's a space that has got an aspect of the sacred. We trust you as our convener, Ilana, and that's why I'm at this meeting here today. It's been very beautiful, and I hear things this. There's slope, and there's this, oh, you're doing this, you're doing that, and it's Extinction Rebellion, all these things are happening. And maybe
maybe some of us are ready to join Extinction Rebellion and do that. I know I'll be there on the 20th and I'll bring some people with. But it would be lovely if maybe we could, in this group, again, at intervals, be together and over time, oh, now you're doing this and you're doing this, and maybe I can join what you're doing, if we may please.
Absolutely. I love it. So, you see, this is how we have to work these days. We have to hit the ground running. So, when you have an idea, that becomes your project. So, Elizabeth, would you please lead this project for us?
Just to say, I mean, those of you who do come on the 20th, if you look up Extinction Rebellion and what you're seeing there and so on, come with a t-shirt, either a black or white t-shirt, and we'll spray paint
We'll spray paint the logo on for you. We're going to try and use temporary paint, like Holly One paint, because it's environmentally friendly. That's what we're trying to do. Yeah.
You see, I still think that one of the biggest problems, and it's great we've got pockets of people with their little expertise, world stream, and that's going to grow because consciousness will do that. But the biggest problem is the awareness element, because I'm ignorant, about certain elements. And it's how do we as individuals, so one thing, for example, is if there is a website, to start creating that awareness. It's like recycling. I get so annoyed because you hear about everybody bantering about recycling, but I don't know what the actual figures are, but half the plastics that we have, we can't recycle. But nobody knows this stuff. So somehow, I'm thinking every email that you send must have some sort of link, or you end off some sort of email with some sort of message around this kind of thing. It doesn't matter whether it's your friends, your family, your business, if you've got Facebook pages, you could chuck stuff on there. As individuals, those are the sort of things we can start doing, but somewhere we need that guidance. Where do we get that? Those links, that stuff, to start creating that awareness, because the ignorance is bliss.
Alana's on our media messaging group, so she's responsible for making sure that the newsletters go out. Our first big one's going out in a day or two.
We're reviewing it tomorrow night.
And so then there's the research group. The WhatsApp group, it's incredible. They're incredibly active, some of them. The amount of information that's flying around and articles and links and the regenerative culture stuff is pretty strong as well. So you go to the UK website, it's incredible the amount of resources that are on there. And this is a planetary problem. So we've got to get our heads around that. But to win the arguments, we've got to be able to be pointing people to what's happening now to our society.
And also, so I'm working on media, but also talks and training. So talks is going to be, and anyone who wants to get involved, let me know. So, Diana, talks is where we go. We're going to Earth Dance. So who wants to get involved in Earth Dance? We're going to stand up and talk. And getting out there and talking in as many different forums as possible. So, really strategic communication to inform audiences, but also part of the training, which is where I'm really getting excited, is to digitize as much of it as possible. And, and even just like short, snappy snippets, because like things that can move viral on social media, absolutely.
That is the thing, is to get the communication out.
Absolutely, and that's where we...
On the 20th, for example, so we're going to be outside the legislature.
So before the next one?
Yeah.
20th September,
And
just before that long
there's a space in between, which most of us will be, if it's very big, we'll be surrounding the legislature. But if it's just 1,000 or 2 people, I don't think we can expect much more than that. If we do more than that, we'll be doing very, very well. But we'll be on a place where you can put up gazebos. So that's what we're planning. If anyone's got gazebos, just bring a your gazebo, put it up. We can put up scores of them, a couple of chairs, and people just, if you're sitting there, people come and talk to you. And we want to engage with people, and we'll make sure there's some material that's available for people and so on. But I do think, this, what Ilana was saying earlier, in order to overcome this hurdle, we've got to rethink many, many things about our society and the way we organise it, how it's run, how it works, and who we are, and dedicating our lives to a life of service, really. And that means putting away the concerns about how am I going to protect myself, how am I going to protect my family.
Respect existence or